For CBS News, Austin.
The federal grand jury investigating January 6th and Donald Trump's handling of classified documents is more likely to hear from former President Mike Pence. CBS's Stephen Portnoy explains why.
In initially fighting the special counsel's subpoena, Mike Pence cited the Constitution's speech or debate clause, which limits the questions members of Congress can face in court. He said as president of the Senate, he was entitled to that protection. Last week, the chief judge of the D.C. District Court agreed, ruling that questions to Pence touching on his ceremonial role should be off limits. But Pence would have to offer other testimony related to Trump. A spokesman says because his initial position was vindicated, Pence won't appeal.
Wall Street closes lower on the latest signs of a slowing economy. The Dow closed up 80 points. The Nasdaq fell 129. Now this.
Staples stores provide innovative products and services for small business, remote workers and learners, even teachers and parents. Explore more at your local Staples store.
It's rich, refreshing, and rewarding. Tune in every Wednesday from 9 to 10 p.m. for the positive, powerful, and provocative Rich Kemp Live radio show. Your host, Bahamian empowermentalist Rich Kemp, will spend the hour empowering you to empower you. You don't want to miss this uplifting hour every Wednesday from 9 to 10 p.m. That's Rich Kemp Live on the Tan Talk Radio Network. And visit his website, rlkemp.com.
We got a song? Do we have a turntable?
Hey, everybody, this is Andy Powell, guitarist, Wishbone Ash, and you are listening to Nostalgic Radio and Cars.
Okay, but it's not a reel-to-reel, though, right?
It's Nostalgic Radio and Cars every Tuesday night from 7 until 8.
We're doing vinyl tonight.
And one of my favorite pinball machines was Aces and Kings. It was a Williams machine. 40 years later, I found that machine.
Don't wait 40 years to find out about Nostalgic Radio and Cars. It's on Tuesday night from 7 until 8.
Here on Tantalk.
Hi, this is Paul Malloy, host of Freedom Works, The Paul Malloy Show. I hope you'll join us every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 10 to 11 a.m. Eastern Time, here on the Tan Talk Radio Network, where we strive to bring you the libertarian perspective on political events of the day. There's no show quite like Freedom Works, with in-depth interviews, our ultimate top 10 list, and so much more. So join us for Freedom Works, The Paul Malloy Show, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 10 to 11 a.m. here on the Tan Talk Radio Network.
Are you a writer, inventor? Do you have questions about your intellectual property rights? Well, tune in every Tuesday and Thursday morning at 11 o'clock for Joy on Paper. Once a month, I will have a special guest, the writer's legal eagle, Bill Larson of Larson & Larson, who can answer your questions. Protect your valuable work. Email me your questions to patsy.radio@gmail.com and then listen in every Tuesday and Thursday at 11 a.m. right here on Tampa Bay's Tan Talk Radio Network. That's patsy.radio@gmail.com.
Hello there, Tampa Bay. This is former NFL and college football coach Jimmy Johnson. Listen to the Kelly Show every Monday starting at 5 p.m. They can sure use the attention.
And this is former Major League Baseball player, Hall of Famer Wade Boggs. I also hope you listen to the Kelly Show every Monday starting at 5 p.m. They can darn sure use the money.
Hi there, this is marine wildlife artist and conservationist Dr. Guy Harvey. Please listen to the Kelly Show every Monday starting at 5 p.m. They need to feel worthy.
Hi, I'm Dawn with Sunkissed Charters. Come and sail with us on a 37-foot endeavor out in the Gulf of Mexico. Up to 6 people, $100 an hour, 3-hour minimum. You can split it between each other. Pet friendly, bring your own food, drinks, restrooms on board. Make it a memory maker. Call 727-871-7788 or call 727-315-4936. SunkissedCharters.com. We'll see you out at the Gulf of Mexico.
Show me the money. It's the Employment Opportunity Hour with Gene Hodge every Thursday night from 7 until 8.
So the purpose of the show is to help you out there to find something that you enjoy doing instead of a job. And at the start of the show, I normally give out a formula, which I know will guarantee you to find the type of job that you want right now.
Find out the formula to an enjoyable job with Gene Hodge's Employment Opportunity Hour every Thursday night from 7 until 8 here on the Tan Talk Radio Network.
Show me the money.
Tampa Bay's Tan Talk, entertaining and informative radio for the Sunshine State.
From 7 to 7:30, the Ozone, with your host, former Major League Baseball player Orestes Destrade. From 7:30 to 8, reach out with host, New York Yankees community consultant
Ray Negron,
Frankie Valli's musical director
Robbie Robinson,
and psychologist
Steve Vaccaro.
Special episodes celebrating Ray Negron's 50 years in baseball. That's coming up Wednesday, April 5th, live on the Chapters Network and the Tan Talk Radio Network.
Imagine, if you will, submitted for your approval, several enigmatic tales and stories on a very curious radio show. The signpost up ahead reads that you have entered the ozone. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the ozone right here on Tan Talk. Your station for all good, curious things, not just sports, but anything you want to tap into. I'm going to be talking a lot about a lot of different sports that have been going on the last week. I was myself in South Florida. Apologies last week. I wasn't feeling that great. Thank you to Steve Vaccaro for pinch hitting for me like Manny Mota in last week's show. But I was able to call in a little bit, but I was a little under the weather. But I was in South Florida. Going to talk a little bit about that. Going to talk about the myriad of sports that are going on. In fact, think about it. We had college basketball. Obviously, this first week of the MLB is off and running. My goodness, the football draft is just a few weeks away. So a lot of exciting things. And by all means, come on in and call us in there at 727-441-3000, 727-441-3000. I've got my man Bobby on the board, and welcome your calls. I'll also be having my weekly guests, which is my nephew Albert D, calling in here and talking, because he is a huge NL East fan, especially the Atlanta Braves. We're off to a very, very good start. And locally here, there's no doubt that our Rays are off to a dramatic start. Going to talk a little bit about that too. But just to overview the last week of sports, think about it, man. You know, you had the LSU Tigers, women's in the NCAA finals in March Madness, taking care of business on Sunday. And then UConn, my goodness, that's 5 titles in 25 years. You got to hand it to them. And you know, when you think about college basketball a lot, you think of Duke and you think of North Carolina and you think of Kansas. But when you really, if you think in the last couple of decades and a little bit in the last 25 years since 99, sneakily, the UConn Huskies have won 5 different times. So you got to think of them as a dynasty, and they just walk through that whole NCAA tournament. And me being a Miami Rays kid, I was pulling for the Canes Saturday night, and but it was not to be. There was really no chance for them as UConn took care of business. Myself, I was down in South Florida for something pretty darn cool. It kind of dates me, but that's okay, because I'm proud to be a not 60. I'm sexty, man. I don't put an I on that. But last year I turned 60 or sexty on May 8th. And 30 years ago, the first pitch was thrown April 5th. In fact, today is the exact date, April 5th, 1993, that Joe DiMaggio, the Yankee Clipper himself, threw out the first pitch at Joe Robbie Stadium. Obviously, now they play at Marlins Park down Lone Depot Park now. They hate that name. Sorry, I got to say it, but it is what it is. They're taking care of business and earning some money over there for their team. But what a weird name. But at Joe Robbie Stadium, 1993, and we played the Dodgers. I'll never forget it. I was at first base, and I was creeping in when Jose Offerman leading off for Tommy Lasorda's Dodgers. Oral Hershiser was going to be on the mound for the Dodgers. For us, it was the legend that is Charlie Huff. I think he was 46 or 47. Though he looked 66 or 67, but the knuckleballer threw out that first pitch. And the Marlins, now the Miami Marlins, honored myself, Mr. Marlin, Jeff Conine, and also a couple other guys, Alex Arias and Luis Aquino, one of our infielders. And Luis was one of our guys that we used a lot as a starter and reliever, closer. Luis did a little bit of everything for us. And they had us out there. I threw out the first pitch in the game on Friday night versus their second game of the season against the Mets. In fact, their first win this season. So I think we brought him good luck, but it just brought back so much memories of back in 1993 and being the first team, not only in Miami and South Florida, but for the state of Florida. Obviously, 5 years later, the Tampa Bay Rays, or at that time, the Tampa Bay Devil Rays came about. But honestly, that was quite the honor for myself, having been born in Cuba, came over when I was 6 years old and raised in Miami, to have represented Miami and forever will be tied to that lore, that epic historic scenario. So it's something I'm very proud of, and I thank the Marlins and the new ownership there for doing the right thing. You know, they had us out there. We met a lot of the fans. During the game they had us signing autographs and taking pictures, and they had quite a good crowd there against the Mets, and it was very, very special. So I'll never forget that, and it's something that I think you're looking at expansion, and because think about it, now there's 4 teams that are celebrating this year. Two of them, the Marlins and the Colorado Rockies, their 30th anniversary. The Rays and the Arizona Diamondbacks, their 25th anniversary. So, a lot of really goodwill celebrations, and it gets me thinking that baseball, Major League Baseball, is not the type to, jump around and move teams around. Football, no doubt, has done it. NBA has done it, even hockey. But baseball tries to stay, where they're at, and what they try to do is expand by a couple teams every few years. It's been 25 years. Keep an eye on that, ladies and gentlemen, because I think around the corner, we're going to be having a couple of more teams. Obviously, Montreal is one of those possible destinations that you might see. And then out west somewhere, maybe Vegas or Portland, Oregon. And I think that's great for baseball. So it was really, really, really cool. And I'm very thankful for that opportunity. And I think expansion for Major League Baseball will be wonderful. Remember, you can call on in at 727-441-3000. I want to thank, obviously, always Steve Vaccaro and the fine folks at Chapter Networks. I was just listening to Disco Dom Scala on with Joe Martin, and what a fun show to hear some of those great stories. I know a lot of us listeners here are old school Yankee fans from the 70s and 80s, and Dom was definitely one of those kind of like iconic people from that era. Bobby, we've got
Albert's on the line.
Albert. Okay, man, listen, coming on in, our weekly out of the pen star, Al D. Jr. Al D., how you doing, buddy?
Doing fantastic. Oh, happy to be back on.
Thanks, man. I was just talking about and you were there with me, and I appreciate you coming out and sharing on it. In fact, it was on your birthday, last Friday on the 31st, your 38th birthday, young man, and got a chance to see something, and be participative, something that is historic. You were just a little 8-year-old back then when that happened. And in fact, I was just telling our listeners that today actually commemorates April 5th was the day that actually happened when Joe DiMaggio threw out that first pitch. And you got any memories from back then? And, baseball coming finally to Major League Baseball coming to the state of Florida?
Yeah, man. I mean, I was a little younger. I was 8 years old when you had the opportunity to be the inaugural first baseman for the then Florida Marlins. I remember just little bits and pieces, but some fun ones. I remember being a little kid riding in I think it was Benito Santiago's Ferrari.
Lamborghini,
maybe. Yeah, Lamborghini.
Yeah.
At the time, it all blended together. But yeah, I remember like just cool little moments and snippets of being around the clubhouse and seeing some little, at the time you don't know what you're seeing, what you're taking in, but it was still really cool to just, have some moments. I remember once, and I think you got me in the Shea Stadium when you guys played the Mets.
Yeah.
I got to get on the field at Shea, which was really cool, back at the old Shea. So definitely some awesome memories, and it was cool to see you catch up with some of the old teammates here this weekend with Jeff Conine and some of the some of the other OG Marlins.
Yeah, definitely the OG. Hey, listen, I'm going to throw you a little curveball and get your opinion on something that every time, 5 years ago they had a nice little event at Marlins Park over there to commemorate the 25th anniversary. And the one thing that stands out for me for that day, there's so many things. We had like 45,000 people there. There was so much excitement, is the first pitch. Because the first pitch of Major League Baseball season is different than any other sport in the world. Okay, it's when you drop the puck, the first game of the NHL, tip off in basketball, kick off in football. It's not as dramatic as the first pitch. In fact, opening day, the pomp and circumstances around opening day, we just had it, last Thursday. Tomorrow will be exactly a week, and so many teams and a few teams I think are still waiting. They started on the road. They're about to have their own, right? Because half the teams are on the road of the 30. But what stood out for me was the knuckleball. I'm creeping in at first because Jose Offerman was known for a potential bunting, and Dave Magadan was at third creeping in, and Frank Pulley was behind the plate, right? And Charlie Huff threw this dramatic knuckleball first pitch, and Benito almost had to reach on the other side. Jose was a switch hitter, and he reached over to his glove side to make this catch. And Frank Pulley, may he rest in peace, called a strike. There was no way that pitch was a strike. But I think he was kind of set that, wherever this knuckleball is going to go, I'm not going to start the first game ever in Marlins history with a ball. And the crowd went nuts. I literally almost stood up out of my crowd, and looked around and kind of, sucked it in, and then, got back to the game, pitch two. But it was incredible. And I have this idea. Tell me what you think. And I want to call it, because his name's Frank Pulley, the great umpire, and he was very dramatic with his strike calls. I want to call it the Pulley pitch. I think that in the future, every opening day, the home team, okay, so the 15 teams, that first pitch should be a four-seamer and automatically a strike, okay, that the hitter is not allowed to swing, and you just give them, it's going to be 0-1, and then the rest of the game goes as normal. But it gives that excitement of that euphoria of the first pitch being a strike, and the 40-some thousand, whatever number thousand, most stadiums are sell out, right? Because the reason I say that is 5 years later, I finally retire, and the great Vince Namoli, may he rest in peace too, hired me to be with the front office with the Rays, at the time the Devil Rays. Wilson Alvarez throws out the first pitch. I'm at this game as a front office, VP.
That game, I was just going to jump in and tell you, I was at Wilson Alvarez. It was March 31st, 1998. It was actually my 13th birthday.
There you go.
Wilson Alvarez threw it against Brian Hunter, man.
And it was a fastball close, and I can't remember. I should have looked it up, but I can't remember who the umpire was. He calls it a ball, and it was anticlimactic, for the first, pitch for the history. So I think the Pulley pitch, I'm going to pitch it to MLB. Because what do you think about that? And then when, the teams that are on the road finally get their opener, they get a Pulley pitch. So that everybody and all the pomp and circumstance and all the hoopla leading up to that first pitch is automatically a strike. And then you go on with the game and the season. What do you think about that?
I think it's a little bit funky. It's a little bit different. I do remember that Wilson Alvarez pitch. I was there, and I remember in 2018, where Ian Happ hit a leadoff home run off of Jose Urena on the first pitch of the season at Marlins Park. Urena tried to groove a fastball down there, but they didn't have the Pulley pitch.
No. It should be it should be not allowed to swing. The reason is because you want the euphoria of strike one for that home crowd, because you're going to have most of the, not everybody is the Dodgers and the Yankees and a couple other teams, Boston, that always sell out, right? Chicago, the Cubs. But, there's a lot of teams there that the attendance drops dramatically after that first game. But at least you get that excitement. It's something that it's been in my heart. And I was reminded of that when I was, standing up, throwing out the first pitch this past Friday at that Mets and Marlins games commemorating our 30 years ago. And I just think that it's kind of something super cool to be able to have that first pitch be a strike and get everything excited and going for a season. But speaking of excited and going, holy cow, the Rays are off to an incredible start. They're 6-0, not only 6-0, Albert, but they're 6-0. They've won all 6 games by 4 or more runs, which is definitely not the Rays way, which is usually 4-3, 3-2 type wins, pitching and defense. But their bats are hot. Luke Raley's got 3 jacks. Okay, obviously, the kid Franco is very, very healthy, and he's off to a couple of jacks, and several guys. Siri is hitting the ball well. But they're done something that hasn't been done since like 1888 or something, where the first 6 or more games have been won by 4 or more runs. So your take on the AL East, and maybe a little flavor of your Bravos were off to a good start too in the NL East.
Yeah, man, it's remarkable. I think, year in and year out, I'm an avid student of the game and student of one of my favorite things is how these successful franchises team build, right? How do you put together a squad, a 40-man roster that can help you compete? And year after year, the Rays just marvel everybody. They have a bunch of guys in their lineup that aren't, superstars, that aren't, high contract guys, but they compete year in and year out. And I think this year, it's actually a different formula than they've ever really used before. They kind of invented the idea of the opener, invented the idea of kind of leveraging all these power bullpen arms. This year, I feel like their calling card is going to be that starting rotation.
Yeah.
I mean, they went and got Zach Eflin over from the Philadelphia Phillies, who kind of finished his tenure as a Philly as a relief pitcher. And once again, man, whatever they do over there, they got into the
especially with pitching. I mean, they've had some strikeouts with hitting and some guys, call ups that have struggled. But pitching wise, whether it's development, calling up a guy, drafting a guy, and preparing a guy, or bringing in either a veteran or a questionable arm that they retread, what success they've had over the last several years.
Oh, they're to me, they're a version of what the San Francisco Giants did 2 years ago with their offensive guys, where they took Evan Longoria and Brandon Crawford and Brandon Belt, and they just said, "Listen, we're going to retool your swing. We're going to show you analytics on how to improve your batted ball data and all these different things." Because it's not like there's something in the water here in Tampa Bay, right? There's got to be a reason why they're able to take these pitchers and just turn them into the best version of themselves. And by the way, Tyler Glasnow is going to be rejoining that rotation pretty soon. When he comes in, that's another frontline, absolute all-world dude who's just going to make them formidable. So, in the American League East, which I think is, if not the best if not the best division in baseball, certainly makes a great case for the second best. Is going to be a dogfight because the Yankees have most of their chips going toward the middle. The Toronto Blue Jays, to me, are a really scary ball club. The Baltimore Orioles are up and coming with some really nice young talent. So. They called up Grayson Rodriguez today, made his major league debut. There's a lot to be said about that division and how competitive it's going to be. And I think that Tampa Bay, once again, is waving the magic wand and finding a way to compete in St. Pete.
What do you think about the NL East? Obviously, you know that division very well. You're a big, fan of the Atlanta Braves. Are off to a nice little start right now in their first week. I believe they're 5-1. Miami's going to be, everybody else is kind of playing a little under 500. Miami's 3-4. The Mets are off to a 3-4 start. Philly's 1-5, and Washington's 1-5. Not expect a whole lot out of Washington. Do expect a lot out of those other, two big East teams in the Mets and the Phillies. But Atlanta definitely is the cream of the crop, wouldn't you say, in that division as far as winning, even though money-wise it's the Mets?
I mean, the Braves they've really positioned themselves under Alex Anthopoulos' tenure to be competitive, not just this year, but for the next stretch run. If you look at that lineup, they basically locked up every single position player to a team-friendly long-term contract, with the exception of shortstop, which, that's still kind of an open door. It's a team that's really built for a postseason run. They have a deep starting rotation. They have an assembly of good arms in the back end. They got a really deep lineup, which might be the deepest lineup in the National League. I mean, move over Padres, move over Dodgers. That lineup is for real.
The Marlins are they're actually, I think, going to compete a little bit this year. What they've done is, if you look back, they've actually been able to win some trades, which, they haven't really done the best job of developing some guys. They've missed on internal dudes. They obviously aren't really big spenders in the free agent market. But look at some of their key players. Sandy Alcantara came over through the Marcell Ozuna trade, right? Jazz Chisholm was part of a trade from Arizona. Luis Ariz, who was the National League batting champion, or the American League defending batting champion, is actually probably going to contend for the National League title this year. Came over to trade from Minnesota.
Dramatic.
Jesus Luzardo, who's a local product,
nasty.
Came over to trade from Starling
He
Marte.
pitched that night we were there. Oh my gosh, he's legit.
He's overwhelming.
Hey, before we got to go, because we got about a minute. Your thoughts on the two best players in the world? They're off to a 4-2 start. I know it's only a week. And speaking of weak with an A, their pitching staff tends to struggle. But the Angels, I mean, everybody's wanting to see, Mike Trout and the great Shohei Ohtani to go into a playoff situation. Any thoughts on that team and maybe making a push this year?
There's a couple key components that are going to really, kind of determine which way the needle falls for that team. Always for them, starting pitching is a question. I think they finally are able to get a little bit of depth behind Shohei. I think Patrick Sandoval's in line to have a really nice season as a number 2 starter. They have some position guys that are coming up that are playing well. Logan O'Hoppy's looking like he's fitting the bill behind the plate as a catcher. The big key for them, believe it or not, here's my guy for them that's going to make it or break it. Anthony Rendon.
Yeah.
Anthony Rendon if he can find his form and regain what he was with the Washington Nationals and put 140 games under his belt of productive baseball this year, that team can compete in that division, because I don't think the AL West is as formidable as it has been in the past.
Yeah.
So I think I think the A's are down.
Listen, I'm going to have you again next week, my friend. Enjoy your weekend. Happy birthday belated to the Al D. And thanks, everybody, for listening in. And catch us next week. We talk a little more baseball, sports, and all the curious things in the world.
You always ask what it's all about.